A couple years ago, Major League Baseball wasn't in the best place. A lockout was imminent and bound to take place any day at that point. It did end up taking place, and although that sucked, it sucked a lot, there did come something out of it that we don't typically see from baseball. An exciting few days worth of offseason moves. Because of the fact that the lockout was waiting to happen and the uncertainty that came with that, several teams took action, and we saw more action in a short span than what has become normal for a typical MLB offseason. Within the span of a few days and really hours, we saw a lot. The Texas Rangers signed two blockbuster deals, Marcus Semien to a 7-year $175 million contract and Corey Seager to a 10-year $325 million contract. Steve Cohen pulled out his checkbook and signed Max Scherzer to the most expensive contract ever as far as annual salary, signing him to a 3-year deal worth $130 million. Those were the biggest deals, but other notable signings were 2021 Cy Young Award winner Robbie Ray signing with the Mariners, Javier Baez and Eduardo Rodriguez to the Tigers, and Marcus Stroman to the Cubs. Again, let me remind you, these deals all happened within the span of like 1 to 3 days. It was crazy and so exciting. Yet in the offseason since, offseasons that haven't had a lockout waiting to happen to shut down baseball transactions, it's been back to the same. Whether it was last offseason or now this offseason that we're currently in, it's been just like the other offseasons, a time where it's clear MLB kind of has an issue compared to other sports. Really quick, I'm trying to get to 140,000 subscribers before 2024, so if you enjoy the content or are new and haven't hit that button yet, consider doing so. Thank you. So, Major League Baseball has some flaws regarding its offseason that very clearly at times makes it so much more painful than the NBA, NFL, or NHL offseasons. And there's a specific reason for this. All three of those other major sports have something that baseball does not, a salary cap, meaning there are very strict rules on how much teams can spend. There's also a max amount of years you can sign a player, stuff like that. It's, I guess in a lot of ways, a little more simple in those sports because of the more restrictions with contracts and team spending. So once you get the rules down, it's much more limited for how you can build your roster. So there's not as much to really do or think about. And in a league like the NBA, free agency seems to end as quickly as it begins because so many players, including the biggest names, sign their contracts so quickly. And MLB, unlike the other three major sports where there is a salary cap and actual restrictions on these contracts, it's way more of a free-for-all. There is no salary cap, but instead a luxury tax. So teams can theoretically spend as much as they want. Obviously, there will be penalties the more they go over the luxury tax, but it's still way more free. They can sign players to as many years as they want too. In the NBA, the largest contract you can give out is 4 years, unless you are a quote-unquote designated player, which is a player on his rookie contract that a team designates who can get a 5-year contract. So 5 is the total max. That's it. That's the most you can get in any circumstance. Where in baseball, you got guys signing 14-year contracts because, again, it's open and free. An agent thinks his player is worth X amount of money, a team thinks that player is worth Y amount of money, and both teams can take their sweet time, really. There's no deadline of any kind. You can wait it out as a player to get the best deal possible, and as a result, you have guys like Manny Machado signing his Padres contract after spring training had already started. And in the same year, you had Bryce Harper signing his Phillies contract in March during spring training. And those are just two examples. Imagine LeBron James signing a contract with the Lakers in the middle of the preseason. Would never happen. But in baseball, guys can sign literally whenever for however many years. And because of this, because of the lack of restrictions, the off seasons can get very slow and boring as hell. And it seemed to have become an issue. We see the NBA and NFL having all their fun right away in such a short span of time, yet in baseball it's so damn dragged out and it drives fans, including me, nuts. It took a damn lockout, which is such a negative thing to happen in your sport, for baseball to have the craziest off-season period ever. In a normal year like this, it's just slow, and I will acknowledge that it's a problem, at least somewhat, but I will also say this, I do prefer MLB's way of handling player contracts. I actually like that there aren't any restrictions on the years you can sign a player, deadlines, no salary caps. I like that it's just more open to whatever and a free-for-all. Some players sign for 13 years, other players sign for 7 years, some players sign for 5 or 3 years, others sign for just 1 year. I think that makes sense. I don't necessarily think there needs to be restrictions on that. If a team signs a player for 12 years, they have every right to do that. And if it backfires, that's on them and they learn from that. And there's also a chance it's worth it. I don't know, there's just something about that format and model that seems more free and more normal to me than almost like breathing down a team's neck and policing them on how they can build their team. But But maybe you disagree and feel that the NBA, NFL, and NHL ways of handling the contracts their players get is better, and that's totally okay. But it's ironic because I like and prefer MLB's contract system, but with their more free and non-restricted contract system comes a much more slow offseason that gets so boring in certain weeks at a time, something that I've complained about. At the end of the day, is this really a pressing issue that MLB needs to fix immediately? No, it's not. It can stay this way forever and we'll all survive. I promise none of us are going to die because of the MLB offseason moving slowly. There are other pressing matters MLB needs to focus on rather than making their offseason move quicker. So it does suck that we have such big names out there either getting traded, but more so on the free agent market in particular, which is where things really differ from the other sports, and it just seems like absolutely nothing is going along or happening with that. Obviously they will happen. Shohei Ohtani will sign with a team eventually, at least most likely. I doubt he's just going to retire or something. Like, everything we want to see happen will happen. It's just a lot more dreadful and long of a process than the other sports. And as much as it sucks and I wish that were different, we all probably wish it were different. You can't really have it both ways. And I am happy with how MLB is regarding no salary cap and no rules on contracts or whatever, even if that means slow off seasons, but maybe that's just me. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.